I'm back with my next video. I hope you all are safe at home. So today we will be discussing about Act 1, Scene 1 of The Merchant of Venice. But before that, let us just quickly discuss what is The Merchant of Venice all about. It is basically a story about Antonio, then Bassanio, who is his best friend, Portia, who is Bassanio's love interest, and Shylock, the so called villain of the story. Antonio is a merchant of Venice, as the book says, and he actually is a businessman who has his cargo at sea with quite a major proportion of his money and resources invested right there. He lends 3,000 ducats to Bassanio even when Bassanio is already previously in debt. Bassanio needs the money to go to Belmont in order to pursue his love interest, Portia. Antonio, as I said, has all his fortunes invested at sea, and it would be some time before he got his payment back. This situation opens up the story where Antonio, being the kind of friend that he is, takes a loan from Shylock, his sworn and rival and enemy, to help out his friend once again. The terms and conditions laid down by Shylock become life threatening for Antonio in the later stages, but presently Antonio cannot work out on the dangers involved. It is here that a lot of subjects for discussion come up, such as Bassanio's intentions, Antonio's understanding of the ways of the world, and also Shylock's return hatred towards the people who demean him, if at all that could be justified. Portia emerges as the most sensible, noble, and judicious character when she identifies the danger to Antonio's life. Antonio, being her lover's best friend, she also recognizes the need to help him out of it. There are a few more characters that add to the spice of the play, but children, they do not go on to change the course of the story. Of course, there is Jessica, who as Shylock's daughter is worth mentioning, as is her lover Lorenzo, who is also a friend of Antonio and with whom Jessica chooses to run away. Nerissa is a servant to Portia, and she is worthy of mention because Portia converses with her extensively, thus revealing her strength of character and her true nature to the audience. These are the created characters of Shakespeare who take the Merchant of Venice through all the trials and tribulations that Shakespeare is a master in presenting to his readers. Before I give you the line by line explanation of Act 1, Scene 1, I'll just give you a gist of what actually happens in this scene. We are introduced to Antonio, the main character, but we also find him to be sad and melancholic. We then come to know two more of his friends, Salerio and Salarino, who try to find out the reason for Antonio's unhappiness. There are discussions that go on about it, and we will eventually come to know of it, and I will explain all of it to you line after line. Before the explanation, we get to know Bassanio, who we understand to be Antonio's better friend by the way their conversation proceeds. Bassanio declares his love for Portia, a rich heiress in Belmont, a place not very far away from Venice, and requests Antonio for a few thousand ducats. Ducats, children, was the currency of that place at that time. As I've already informed you, Antonio is a true friend, but at the moment his fortunes are at sea and he does not have the money to be able to help his good friend. He, on the other hand, proposes for Bassanio to go in search of similar such money lenders using his clout and goodwill in the Venetian market. Now we will proceed towards a proper translation of the prose composed by Shakespeare in his own crafty Elizabethan English, or to a simplified version in plain simple English that will help you to understand each and everything very properly. When the curtains of the stage are drawn, we find Antonio entering with two of his friends, Salarino and Solanio. We begin with Act 1, Scene 1, which is taking place in a street in Venice. Enter Antonio, Salarino, and Solanio. Antonio. In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me, you say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it is made of, whereof it is born, I am to learn. And such a want with sadness makes of me, that I have much ado to know myself. Here Antonio tries to say that in truth I do not know how I came to be so sad, or how this sadness got upon me. I don't yet know what this sadness is made of and from where it is even born. Yet it makes me so slow minded and such a slow witted person that I am myself totally at a loss. I do not, as of now, even know who the real me is. Salarino. Your mind is tossing on the ocean. There, where your argosies with portly sail, like seniors and rich burghers on the flood, or as it were the pageants of the sea, to overbear the petty traffickers that curtsy to them, do them reverence as they fly by them with their woven wings. His friend Salarino tries to console him. He says, your mind, my dear friend, seems to be upon the sea with your ships that sway with the waves. It is where your grand vessels sail full of gentlemen and high class citizens, very similar to grand exhibits of some ceremonial processions that overshadow the smaller ships and boats also at sail on the sea. These smaller boats sway up and down as if they pay respect to Antonio's larger vessels as they pass by. Woven wings actually mean the sails of these ships are made of cotton canvas. It is to be considered here, children, that such lofty words are most often used for flattery. We have Salanio's speech over here. Believe me, sir, had I such venture forth, the better part of my affections would be with my hopes abroad. I should be still plucking the grass to know where sits the wind, peering in maps for ports and piers and roads, and every object that might make me fear. Misfortune to my ventures, out of doubt, would definitely make me sad. Salanio says to his friend, believe me, sir, if I had so much fortune moving around in the sea, definitely all my attention would be there with my money. I would be holding tufts of grass in my hands and blowing them to check the directions of the wind. I would look into the maps and docks and harbors, as also I would look into every other detail that could spell any kind of danger to my ships. Salarino. My wind cooling my broth would blow me to an ache when I thought what harm a wind too great at sea might do. I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and of flats, and see my wealthy Andrew docked in sand, veiling her high top lower than her ribs to kiss her burial. Salarino continues with his speech. He says, if I knew that my own breath could blow my soup cold, then I would shiver at the thought that the winds that blow at sea could cause equal devastating effect upon the sailing ships. An hourglass would not be the instrument I would look out for keeping a track of passing time, but more so, I would look out for the shallows and flats that appear out of nowhere at sea. Continuing with Salarino's conversation, should I go to church and see the holy edifice of stone, and not bethink me straight of dangerous rocks, which, touching but my gentle vessel's side, would scatter all her spices on the stream, enrobe the roaring waters with my silk. Even going to the church and holy buildings made of stone would remind me of the dangerous rocks at sea. And I would imagine my ship breaking down, spilling over most of their cargo into the sea or upon the sands. And then I would feel as if the silk intended for sale on foreign shores were actually destined to be the clothing for the waters unknown. Salarino continues by saying, and in a word, but even now worth this, and now worth nothing. Shall I have the thought to think on this, and shall I lack the thought that such a thing be chanced would make me sad? But tell not me, I know Antonio is sad to think upon his merchandise. Salarino continues by saying that if I can understand what great misfortunes could hit my ship, I would definitely picture what such mishappenings could have upon me. I thus know why Antonio is sad because he is also thinking about the same. Antonio says, believe me, no, I thank my fortune for it. My ventures are not in one bottom trusted, nor to one place, nor is my whole estate upon the fortune of this present year. Therefore, my merchandise makes me not sad. Here we see that Antonio disagrees with Salarino. He says, believe me, it is not so. I thank my good luck for it. My business is not all dependent on only one particular ship or what fortunes it returns with this year. This is not the reason why I am sad. Salarino, why then are you in love? Antonio, fie. So Salarino then asks him, then is the reason for your sadness your love for someone? But Antonio disagrees with this idea, saying that this is utter nonsense. Salarino, not in love neither? Then let us say you are sad because you are not merry. And 'twere as easy for you to laugh and leap and say you are merry because you are not sad. Now, by two-headed Janus, nature hath framed such strange fellows in her time, some that will evermore peep through their eyes and laugh like parrots at a bagpiper, and other of such vinegar aspect that they'll not show their teeth in a way of smile, though Nestor swear the jest be laughable. Children, you will notice Shakespeare using all this kind of nonsense speeches in between to lighten the mood of the play. So again, we have Salarino giving one of his lengthy speeches. He says, so you are not in love either. And then let us say you are sad because you are not happy. Yet it would have been so easy for you to have laughed about and claimed that you were happy because you are not sad. It would just be like Janus, the two-headed Roman god of beginnings and transitions, as also of gates and doors. Janus was always depicted to be placed above doorways with one head looking towards the inside and one looking outside, referring to show that nature creates people with different kinds of outlook. Such people are prone to laugh at anything and everything like parrots that miss the melody of a bagpipe and mindlessly laugh at it too. Solanio interrupts Salarino's speech by saying, here comes Bassanio, your most noble kinsman, Gratiano and Lorenzo. Fare ye well. We leave you now with better company. So, here we see Salanio saying, here comes Bassanio, your most noble friend. There's an indication of the arrival of two other friends, Gratiano and Lorenzo, as Salanio wishes them goodbye. Salarino, I would have stayed till I had made you merry, if worthier friends had not prevented me. Salarino now says, I bid goodbye to you, and I would say that I would have stayed here to make you happier, but I feel worthier friends have arrived who will take on the business from now on. Antonio, your worth is very dear in my regard. I take it your own business calls on you and you embrace the occasion to depart. Antonio tries to pacify Salarino by saying that your worth is also high in my regard. I believe you have your own concerns to attend to and you wish to depart owing to it. Here we find Graciano, Lorenzo, and Bassanio entering the stage. Salarino. Good morrow, my good lords. Salarino wishes the rest of Antonio's friends a very good morning. Bassanio says, good seniors, both, when shall we laugh? Say when. You grow exceeding strange. Must it be so? Bassanio continues saying, good friends, both of you, when shall we actually laugh? Please say, when shall we actually find such occasions to laugh? Salarino, we will make our leisures to attend on yours. Salarino replies to Bassanio by saying that we'll always be with you whenever you are free. And then we see Salarino and Solanio exiting from the scene. Lorenzo, my lord Bassanio, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you. But at dinner time, I pray you have in mind where we must meet. Lorenzo now says, my dear friend Bassanio, as you have found Antonio, we must now leave, but at dinner, as promised, we must meet where we have agreed earlier. Bassanio, I will not fail you. Bassanio says, yes, I'll definitely be there and on time. Graciano, you look not well, Senior Antonio. You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it that do buy it with much care. Believe me, you are marvelously changed. Here, Graciano expresses his concern by saying to Antonio, dear Antonio, you do not look so well right now. You seem to be too respectful towards the world. Worrying too much does not help in the real world. Believe me, you have come to be a different person altogether because of your tensions and worries. Antonio, I hold the world, but as the world, Graciano, a stage where every man must play a part and mine a sad one. Here, children, you will notice a reference to the famous speech of Shakespeare, All the World's a Stage. Antonio says, I think the world is exactly as it is. It is nothing but a stage upon which we as human beings play our roles that have been designed by powers unknown. And at the moment, I have been given the part of playing the role of a sad man. We again have one of those nonsense speeches of Graciano to lighten the mood. Let me play the fool with mirth and laughter, let old wrinkles come, and let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. Why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like his grandsire cut in alabaster, sleep when he wakes, and creep into the jaundice by being peevish? Here Graciano says, let me be the source of your entertainment today. If wrinkles upon our faces are inevitable, then let them come with extensive laughter. And rather, I be intoxicated and fly high than be cold with moaning and groaning. Why, after all, should a young man appear to be a plaster image of his grandfather? Why should someone young sulk and bring upon himself a self-induced pallor? Here, pallor indicates jaundice that the Elizabethans believed came upon people who worried too much needlessly and refused to stay happy. Continuing with Graciano's speech, we have, I tell thee what, Antonio, I love thee, and it is my love that speaks. There are a sort of men whose visages do cream and mantle like a standing pond, and do a wilful stillness entertain, with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, profound conceit. Here, Graciano continues by saying, I love you as a friend, and this is why I speak for your benefit. There are certain people whose appearances are never changing, much like the standing dirt and grime on the surface of a pond. They put on an air of solemnity and tend to reject the friendly advances of their well wishers. They think it is their character to be as they are, and they would be, in their own opinion, gain a reputation of being so. As who should say, I am Sir Oracle, and when I ope my lips, let no dog bark. They think they are silent when in reality they are hurting themselves. When they talk, they think they are doing a service to humanity and everyone else should keep quiet, and even dogs should stop barking because they think they are speaking the word of God. Continuing with Graciano's speech, O my Antonio, I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise, for saying nothing, when I am very sure if they should speak would almost damn those ears, which, hearing them, would call their brothers fools. Graciano says, I know about a lot of men like that. People are considered wise only when they do not open their mouths to speak uselessly. I'm sure once they did, people would definitely know what kind of fools they are. I'll tell thee more of this another time, but fish not with this melancholy bait, for this fool gudgeon, this opinion. Come, good Lorenzo, fare ye well a while. I'll end my exhortation after dinner. He continues by saying, be happy if you can, but how should I imply upon this? I am, after all, a fool, a joker. Allow me to take your leave. Come on, Lorenzo, let us leave. I will, if I must, finish my lecture after dinner. Lorenzo, well, we will leave you then till dinner time. I must be one of these same dumb wise men, for Graciano never lets me speak. Making fun of Graciano, Lorenzo says, all right then, we will see you at dinner time, but you surely do not allow me to speak at all, and yet you call me a wise man. Graciano, well, keep me company but 2 years more, thou shalt not know the sound of thine own tongue. Graciano continues by saying, if you stay with me for a couple of years more, I am sure you would totally forget your own voice, because I would never let you speak. Antonio, farewell. I'll grow a talker for this year. Antonio says goodbye. I think after all this lecture of yours, I would begin talking a lot. Graciano says, thanks, I faith, for silence is only commendable in a neat's tongue dried. Graciano says, thank you, sir. The only tongues that should remain silent are ox tongues that are most often kept separate for servants that serve upon tables of their lords. Here we witness the exit of Graciano and Lorenzo. Bassanio stays back with Antonio to discuss some important matters. Antonio, is that anything now? Antonio asks Bassanio, is there any point in that? Bassanio, Graciano speaks an infinite deal of nothing, more than any man in all Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hid in 2 bushels of chaff. You shall seek all day ere you would find them, and when you have them, they are not worth the search. Here we see Bassanio giving us a character sketch of Graciano. He says, Graciano talks more nonsense than anyone in Venice. And if you listen to him and begin trusting him, you would essentially be looking for a needle in a haystack. And when you actually find the needle, you would realize that the effort wasted in the search for it was not at all worth it. Antonio, well, tell me now, what lady is the same to whom you swore a secret pilgrimage that you today promised to tell me of? Changing the topic, Antonio says, so, who is this girl for whom you seem to be taking a special recourse? Please tell me as you promised to do so. Bassanio, it is not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled mine estate by something showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance. Nor do I now make moan to be abridged from such a noble rate. But my chief care is to come fairly off from the great debts wherein my time, something too prodigal, hath left me gagged. To you, Antonio, I owe the most in money and in love, and from your love I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I know. Bassanio here says, you very well know how I have wasted my money by keeping interests that actually are beyond my means. My biggest concerns are about the things that I owe to people such as you. I want to come honorably out of the debts of love and money both that I owe to you mostly and emerge a better and sufficient person. Your love for me gives me the confidence to reveal all that I mean and intend to do in the near future. Antonio, I pray you, good Bassanio, let me know it, and if it stand as you yourself still do, within the eye of honor, be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions. Antonio requests Bassanio to tell him about his plans. He says, please tell me the details of your scheme. If they are as honorable and worthy as you are, then I assure you that all my wealth will be at your disposal so that you may use it to achieve your purpose. Bassanio, in my school days, when I had lost one shaft, I shot his fellow off the self same flight, the self same way with more advised watch, to find the other fourth, and by adventuring both, I often found both. Bassanio says here, in my school days, if I lost an arrow, I would shoot another arrow with the same force and in the same direction, taking a more deliberate aim. And you know what? By risking the second one, I would often find both. He continues by saying, I urge this childhood proof because what follows is pure innocence. I owe you much, and like a wilful youth, that which I owe is lost. He says, I give you this example to prove my innocence. I already owe you a lot of money. But if you please to shoot another arrow that self way which you did shoot the first, I do not doubt, as I will watch the aim, or to find both, or bring your latter hazard back again, and thankfully rest debtor for the first. He assures Antonio by saying that if you trust me to give me a loan once again, I would recover both the amounts for you and remain obliged to you forever. Antonio, you know me well, and herein spend but time to wind about my love with circumstance, and out of doubt you do me now more wrong in making question of my uttermost, than if you had made waste of all I have. Then do but say to me what I should do, that in your knowledge may by me be done, and I am pressed unto it, therefore speak. Antonio continues by saying that as you know me very well, you need not waste your time by trying to be indirectly appreciative towards me. I am ready to do what is possible for me. And I would also appreciate that you promptly disclose your intentions to me. Bassanio, in Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair and fairer than that word of wondrous virtues. So, here we see Bassanio coming out with his actual intentions. He now relates the actual motive of going to Belmont. He says, in Belmont is a lady who has inherited a huge fortune. She is beautiful in every sense of the word, possibly even more. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. Her name is Portia, nothing undervalued to Cato's daughter, Brutus's worth, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. For the four winds blow in from every coast. He continues by saying that she has expressed her interest in me by way of a few glances that quite shyly she has conveyed. She is none other than Portia and is no inferior in virtue or quality to Portia, daughter of Cato and wife to Brutus. Here, children, we have reference to one of more of Shakespeare's plays, Julius Caesar. Bassanio continues by saying that the world is aware of her charms and her moral and intellectual attainments. So much so that renowned suitors and her sunny locks hang on her temples like a golden fleece, which makes her seat of Belmont Colcho's strand, and many Jasons come in quest of her. O my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of them, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate. He continues by saying that she has many suitors from distant lands, and everyone seems hell-bent on seeking her hand. But something in me urges me to take a stance and appear right there to take a claim upon her person. Something also tells me that I will definitely succeed in my endeavors, even if there is a bit of extravagance involved. Antonio, thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea. Neither have I money nor commodity to raise a present sum. Therefore, go forth, try what my credit can in Venice do, that shall be racked, even to the uttermost, to furnish thee to Belmont, to fair Portia. Go, presently inquire, and so will I, where money is, and I no question make to have it of my trust or for my sake. Antonio says, you must go as soon as possible, but here I have to be very candid about my position right now. All my money is moving around in the sea with my merchandise. Before the ships return, I will not be able to pay you any amount of money. Yet, I have a lot of connections here in Venice and things move upon my good faith with people. Please feel free to procure the sum from anyone you find by using my name. I would agree to that person's terms and conditions. With this, we come to the end of Act 1, Scene 1. In my next video, we will be proceeding with Act 1, Scene 2. If you wish to get regular updates of my videos, do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, it's an earnest request to like and share my videos.